The headlines. In New Zealand, the Prime Minister formally apologises to those abused in care. It's a day they've waited for decades. We'll hear from one survivor. World leaders meet in Azerbaijan to discuss how to tackle global warming, with a dire warning that the climate is on the road to ruin. Shigeru Ishiba wins a vote to remain Japan's Prime Minister. He must now run a fragile minority government as protectionist Donald Trump returns to the White House. And the mysteries of Uranus and its 5 moons are uncovered by new analysis of decades-old data.
Our headlines for you today. A life or death decision for MPs. Details of proposed new laws to end the life of terminally ill people in England and Wales are published. We will hear from both sides of the debate.
I'm not scared to die, but I am scared of a bad death, a long, drawn-out, brutal, horrific death.
It's just literally not the right time for us as a society to change the law around this very, very problematic issue.
Pressure grows on the Archbishop of Canterbury to resign over a failure to act against a prolific child abuser linked to the church.
They think it's all over. It is now. Gary Lineker will leave Match of the Day at the end of the season.
Have you been the victim of a rogue trader? Good morning. Rules are about to be tightened for recommendation websites, but do they go far enough?
Paddy McGuinness has completed almost 70 miles of his ultra-endurance cycle challenge for BBC Children in Need already.
Yeah. He has cycled from Wrexham to Preston, and he's hoping to travel through 3 nations over the course of 5 days, covering a grand total of 300 miles. Now, the important thing, John, I don't know if you saw this with us yesterday, as he left, he's on a chopper. Did you ever have a chopper?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, quite heavy, little tiny wheels.
Quite old. Well, it's a new one, isn't it? It's been specially made
He's not old. Stop.
No, the chopper's on. Let's have a look at the Tuesday morning papers, shall we? And The Guardian leading with the story we talked about this morning. Those calls for the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, to resign following a report over his handling of a child abuse report into a prolific child abuser associated with the Church of England.
The Times looks into the pill that's going to be offered to tens of thousands of smokers in England who are trying to give up cigarettes. The pill is said to reduce cravings and the effects of nicotine that keep people addicted.
The Eye reports on how water bills will need to rise in order to fix the sewage crisis, according to the Water Minister. The paper says the government is also looking at conducting year-round sewage testing at a number of wild swimming spots.
And the Sun newspaper leads with the news that Gary Lineker is stepping down from his role hosting Match of the Day at the end of the season and could leave the BBC altogether after the 2026 World Cup. It says the former footballer wants to leave on a high.
So it's reporting what Match of the Day would come to an end at the end of this season and then he'd stay on for an extra year for the...
Because the World Cup would be the year after, yeah.
You know, zebras look like they're barcodes.
Yes.
Well, there's a story in the Mail this morning which says that they are literally going to be used as barcodes. Apparently, there is a company called Marwell Wildlife who have teamed up with the University of Southampton, and they've worked out that you can identify zebras and cheetahs and any kind of wild animal with stripes and spots.
By their markings.
By that. And they're going to be able to use drones to monitor them in the wild, so it stops them having to be rounded up and tagged, and it's a whole new way of monitoring wild populations of endangered species all over the world.
So it's a bit like their fingerprint, essentially.
Yeah,
that's
exactly
incredible.
Right. Yeah.
John, are you excited about the new Gladiator movie?
I am, actually.
Are you?
Yeah, I'd quite like to see it. Although the reviews are really mixed, aren't they? Some people say it's brilliant.
The reviews are very, very mixed, but I'm sure it's very exciting. But Paul Mescal, who plays the lead, the new Gladiator, in the sequel to the original film. There's been lots of things in the papers about how he got fit for the role, and there's going to be a real resurgence now in perhaps people attempting to get a gladiator body. And do you know what? In the papers today, there's a story about how intense it is to try and do that. And apparently, for one scene in which he had to take his top off, he trained for 2 weeks solid just for one scene. For having to take your shirt off. It's a lot of effort.
Dedication, but he looks totally different.
Yes, yeah, it worked, yes.
The work paid off.
Yes.
Well done, Paul. Nina's trying to get me to do a half marathon with her.
Can't believe you just mentioned that on air. Yeah. You've said it on the television now, which means...
Trying to persuade me, I said. I didn't say I was going to do it. Nina is here, though, to talk about rogue traders this morning, because it can be Well, you doubted me.
He's not going to do it now.
Of course I'm not.
Yeah.
You're using the reverse psychology, Sally, by saying he can't do the half marathon.
No, I'm
He
not.
is
I think
gonna
he
do the
shouldn't.
half
I'm
marathon.
worried about him. I
Exactly.
don't think he should.
I'm not going to click on the email I get from Nina. I think it might be a scam. Morning.
Pub in central London is charging customers an extra £2 a pint after 10 p.m. The owners of the pub group, which operates O'Neill's on Wardour Street, said the policy reflected a request from the police and local council to increase prices in line with late-night market. Westminster Council said it doesn't require businesses to charge different prices at different times, but added that in 2022 it insisted venues increase security after 10 p.m. and serve alcohol in polycarbonate glasses. Another part closure of the Blackwall Tunnel has been announced. The southbound route will be closed from 11 p.m. this Saturday until 5 a.m. Monday to allow for work on a new road layout ahead of a river crossing. The Blackwall Tunnel, which has already seen a series of weekend closures this year, will remain open northbound. The Woolwich Ferry, Rotherhithe Tunnel and Tower Bridge are expected to be busier. London Stansted Airport recorded its busiest day in history during the half-term holidays. More than 107,000 passengers passed through its terminal on the 27th of October, beating the record by roughly 3,000 people. It's the fourth time the record's been broken this year. A section of one of Britain's most important Roman roads has been unearthed under Old Kent Road, known as Watling Street. The near 2,000-year-old road ran from the Roman port at Dover through London to the West Midlands. Archaeological work has been taking place as part of the expansion of Southwark's heating network by the local council and Veolia.
At 6, the Archbishop of Canterbury resigns. He says he's doing so in sorrow and with a profound sense of shame. It comes after days of mounting pressure over his handling of a child abuse scandal that stretches back decades. Justin Welby, the spiritual leader of 85 million Anglicans for more than a decade, says he hopes his resignation makes clear how seriously the Church understands the need for change.
I think he's made the right decision for victims and survivors, the right decision for the Church.
Also tonight, a 17-year-old girl is killed after getting out of a police car on the M5 in Somerset. It's emerged that the post office could be in line for a radical shake-up which may result in hundreds of job losses. As the BBC confirms Gary Lineker is stepping down, we'll look at who could be the new face of Match of the Day. And the extraordinary story of the runner whose heart stopped for 6 minutes during the Belfast Marathon and lived to tell the tale. And could a new improved pill be the answer for people who want to give up smoking?
A proposed law to legalise assisted dying in England and Wales has been published. Supporters say it would come with strict safeguards, but critics say people could feel pressure to end their own life. 5 women who say they were raped or sexually assaulted by former Harrods owner Mohammed Al Fayed tell us about finding strength since speaking out together.
How much would you pay for a pint? How so-called surge pricing is seeing it jump by £2 in a single evening at one London pub.
I guess it's better for the pubs. I feel like they'd make more money if their prices were cheaper because more people would be compelled to spend.
We'll be finding out why it's happening and whether more businesses are doing the same.
Also ahead this evening, sleeping rough. We hear about the challenges for female ex-prisoners to get a roof over their head. Plus, an incredible find, why this slice of earth is actually an original Roman road discovered under the Old Kent Road. And bringing the sparkle to Covent Garden as the Christmas tree lights are switched on for the festive season.
Archaeologists have unearthed a section of one of Britain's most important Roman roads under the Old Kent Road. Said to be nearly 2,000 years old, it ran from Dover to the West Midlands via London. Southwark Council says it's the first physical proof that sections of the ancient road survive directly beneath its modern counterpart.
A man's been arrested this afternoon after reports he was carrying multiple knives outside the Houses of Parliament. The 34-year-old was detained on suspicion of possession of an offensive weapon in a public place. There were no reports of any injuries. A 16-year-old boy has been given a referral order after starting a fire at the London Oratory School in Fulham last year that caused £2 million worth of damage. The teenager was cleared at the trial of the more serious charge of arson with recklessness for endangering life. And the painter Frank Auerbach has died at his London home, aged 93. He arrived in Britain as a boy under the Kindertransport scheme and was considered one of the country's greatest living artists. A self-confessed workaholic, he kept the same studio in Camden for 50 years. Next, more than 1 in 10 women who leaves prison ends up sleeping rough. With the government's early release scheme for some prisoners, it's an issue that's become even more apparent. Today, at a special hearing at City Hall, experts have talked of the challenges and the context in which newly released female inmates felt safer going back to prison rather than being free.